Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments, and if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. I walked in to find her sitting at the kitchen table. She looked like she was ready to burst with energy, but that was just how she usually appeared, so I didn't think much of it. I noticed she had brewed some coffee, so I poured us both a cup and sat down. "What's on your mind, Claire? You can't be serious. What is this?" She pointed to some printed pictures on the table, my favorite images. I thought about getting some of them enlarged to hang on the wall. I picked them up to look closely, setting aside a few that I really liked. "These are pictures of young women. I remember when you looked like that." That struck a nerve. At 40, she was noticing changes in her body and worked hard to stay fit. It made her pause, and her face turned a bit redder. "You shouldn't be looking at these. Why would you do that?" I sighed. I knew this wouldn't go over well. Because sometimes I want to have a real conversation with someone who isn't focused on my mistakes. It's easier than therapy, and I actually enjoy it. Believe me, it's more than just small talk. They could say plenty, but it didn't matter unless I was with them. One girl, China, is in college and needs help with her expenses. Another, Alex, is a single mother trying her best for her kids. I suspected they could be misleading me, but I didn't think so. I was already giving them a little extra support without being asked, so what did they have to lose? "You need to stop this right now. No more careless spending." To her surprise, I agreed. "Fine, no more careless spending. But this goes both ways, right? No more shopping sprees or nights out. That all adds up to much more than what I spend on the girls. We'll have extra money, and it'll be a great plan." "What? Wait a minute, this isn't—" "Yes, it is. That's what we're going to do. I can't wait. Since you seem to avoid me lately, it might be a bit awkward at first, but you'll get used to it. Maybe it'll even spark some conversations between us every now and then." "That's not fair. We do talk." "No, we don't. Just stating what will happen in our lives isn't talking. It's more like giving a lecture. How about we separate our finances and split the bills evenly? This way you can spend your remaining money however you want, and I get the same freedom. I wanted to share some news, but I couldn't find the right moment, so I'll just say it now. I bought a kayak. I used to enjoy kayaking, and I found a group that goes out most weekends. Think of how much time that could give you to focus on your own hobbies. Your spare cash will be less, so gifts for Marky will be fewer and spread out. I'm sure he cares for you enough that it won't change how he feels." She seemed flustered, clearly surprised that I knew about Marky. I found it interesting that at 32 he still went by Marky, which said something about his maturity. I knew their relationship hadn't taken a big step yet, but that seemed to be in the works. She was facing a situation she didn't fully realize had started. I sighed and got up, coming back after a moment with an envelope. "Here you go. It's just the basics, and we can adjust it later, but let me point out a few important things. You can't claim the house since my parents are still part owners. You can have half of everything else, and I won't make a fuss. But if things turn sour, I won't hold back. You don't know what I know or what I have, so it would be a bad idea to make me angry. Your mom might lose her place at the country club, and your dad does a lot of business with my company. I may not own it, but the owner cares for me like family. If news gets out about how you hurt me, he might not be so friendly to your family. I would never do anything to put Dad's business at risk. I like him, but it's his daughter I'm struggling with. Don't bring your whole family into this. It won't turn out well." She seemed to be talking, but no sounds came out. I stood up. "I've got to go now. I'm headed out for a 2-day kayak trip, and I'm really looking forward to it. The water will be calm, which is perfect since I'm not as skilled as I used to be. I hope this helps me get back in shape. Have a nice weekend. Please say hi to Marky for me. He should be happy I'm not around. He can take the lead." I changed into shorts and a shirt while she sat at the table. I grabbed my backpack and headed for the door. Suddenly, she snapped back to reality and jumped up. "Don't leave. We need to talk." We needed to talk a long time ago when I asked if something was wrong. It might be too late now, and for once in our marriage, you don't get to decide how this goes. I'll see you Sunday if you're still here. She stepped to the door and noticed my truck for the first time. I saw her frown and couldn't help but smile. I had told her I needed a new vehicle, but she worried we couldn't afford anything. She had a 2-year-old RAV4, while I had a 10-year-old Chevy with a lot of miles. It wasn't brand new, but I thought I got a great deal. It was 4-wheel drive with brand new tires, and everything was in good shape. The previous owner had just become too old to drive, so I bought it for a low price. A shiny new kayak was fastened to the back. I waved as I backed out of the driveway, feeling pleased by her expression. The trip was fun. Most of it was on the lake, but we also navigated some swift river sections that helped me build my confidence. We camped at a designated area, and I impressed everyone with my cooking, so I ended up doing most of it. Garrett's girlfriend, Melissa, was skilled too, and we made a good team. The best part was that there was no cleanup. We enjoyed coffee and lighthearted talks about Garrett and the others. They asked about my wife. I told them she wasn't into kayaking or camping and was probably at a spa enjoying a nice day. They laughed and switched topics to their planned trip to Canada later in the summer, which involved 4 days of serious paddling and exciting waters. I hoped it improved enough by then to join them. When we parted at the pickup point, we exchanged friendly waves, but my happiness faded as I approached home. As I expected, she wasn't there and didn't show up until almost 10. I guessed she was ready for a fight, but I was tired and wanted a good night's sleep. I had organized the spare bedroom with an attached bathroom. Right before bed, I locked the door and put a chair against it, just in case. She made sure to be loud and disruptive. I woke up briefly, smiled to myself, then rolled over to sleep again. I got up early, dressed for work, and had fresh coffee ready when she finally came downstairs. Claire poured herself a cup and sat down with a sigh while I smiled at her. "Did you have a good weekend?" I asked. She looked ready to explode, but then seemed to calm down. "I had a rough weekend. Thanks for asking. How was yours?" "It was both exciting and tiring. I'm not in great shape for kayaking, but I'm getting better. I want to get fit before the Canada trip in late August. I'm sorry your weekend wasn't good. Did Marky not keep you entertained? Was he as good as he said he would be, or was it just talk?" "I wasn't with Marky. Sorry about that. Did he have other plans? He might be able to meet you the weekend after next. He'll be on another kayaking trip then." She didn't want to talk about that. Instead, she turned to money matters. "You split our bank account?" "Really?" I did. It seemed smart, especially with the divorce coming. "Don't worry. I don't think any of the money was yours. Be careful with it since I won't be contributing anymore. I thought about it while I was paddling. I'm fine with living together for now. Thanks to my parents, we don't have a house payment, so our expenses are low. You pay for the phone and internet, and he'll cover everything else, including groceries. You take care of your car insurance, and he'll handle mine. I have a car payment now, but I got a good deal and put some money down to pay it off in 2 years. Your car is paid off and has low mileage, so it should last you another 4 or 5 years if you keep it maintained. You may need to help with Chelsea's college, but she has enough funds to get through her junior year, and by then, we should be able to cover the rest." Good thing we only had one child, huh? He'll keep the insurance on her car, so that's one less worry for her. Does this sound fair to you? I felt a mix of emotions as I listened to her. I thought we would be together forever, and now we're just another couple that didn't make it. I stood up. "Think about it. We can talk tonight." Once I got to work, I called the person I hired to keep an eye on her. He set up cameras and sound in the house before she got home. I paid for a month, hoping everything would be sorted out by then. He also followed her over the weekend. She mostly visited people, mainly her family and yours. I recorded parts of the conversations and heard some interesting things while she was home. She made sure to stay away from the person we were monitoring, but they spoke on the phone. I can give you the transcripts, or you can listen to the recordings when you get home. I decided to wait and sent him some money for his services. This was part of why I divided the money. I didn't want her to know I was watching. I talked to my boss to update him on what was happening. He listened carefully, and then leaned back in his chair, thinking. I knew not to rush him, so I waited. After a while, he looked at me and asked, "Is it too late?" "It might be. She hasn't been with anyone, but she has been on dates with 3 different men. I'm not sure if she's looking for something better or thinking about a change. The last 18 months have been tough for me. I didn't get a break until we sent Kelsey off to college. I did what you said and separated our finances. She's always taken her salary for granted, as if it were just spending money. She hasn't had to worry about bills in 17 years, so this is going to be a big shock for her. I'm not sure she can handle it. She will if she has to, he replied. Does she know I want you to take over the company when I retire? Dan had always been devoted to his family. When he lost his wife and 2 sons in a car accident 8 years ago, I feared we had lost him too. I was unsure of what to do, but I kept the company running until he returned to us. He saw my efforts and made me his right-hand man. Now, I am making many everyday decisions, and he is passing more responsibility to me. 5 years ago, he met a widow who was younger than him, and they connected well. She had to approach him first because he was shy, but eventually he agreed to give her a chance, and they seemed to be very happy together. She didn't have children, so they included Chelsea in their family. Chelsea became their granddaughter, and my mom would laugh about it before eventually calling Megan to meet them. They made plans for Chelsea's entire teenage years and tried to help her choose colleges. For her high school graduation, both grandmothers gifted her a new car with the promise that she would spend time with them whenever she could. They cried together for hours. Claire, however, seemed a bit upset that she was not included. I reassured her that it was a special grandparent thing and that she would have her time in a few years. Unfortunately, that did not cheer her up. Back to the meeting, I told Dan no. Every time I was about to bring up the topic, Claire would start getting upset, so I stopped trying, thinking she would figure it out on her own eventually. Dan said, I will make sure she can't take part in the company. He added, if you and Claire stay together and work things out, it won't be a problem. But if not, I hope she thinks about her choices when you're in charge. He wrapped up our meeting with some advice. You've had 19 years together, most of them good. Even though Claire has made mistakes, there's nothing you can't work through, even if it means getting help. It's your choice, and I'll support you either way. I'm glad your mother is in Florida, away from the situation that might develop. I agreed with him, feeling grateful as I hugged Dan, who felt like a second father to me. I left work just after lunch and got home about 3 hours before Claire. During that time, I read about her activities while she was away. She visited her mother, her sister, and 3 friends, and she talked to my mom for an hour. She stayed home otherwise, ordering food both nights, and went to bed by 11. The phone calls revealed some things. Her first call was to her best friend. I could only hear her side, but it was interesting to listen. Bets, I think he knows about my outings with Jim and Eric, and he probably knows about Marky, too. I feel like I really messed things up. I don't understand why I let it go this far. What? No, I hadn't thought about leaving him. I just wanted something different. It felt like a shock when he said he knew about Marky and left for the weekend. No, not to break up. It was just a trip with some new friends. No, not friends with benefits, at least not that I know of. If he was, what can I say? But I haven't been with anyone else, so I'd be okay there. If he's gone that far, my thoughts wouldn't matter much to him. I have no idea what to do. Should I just end it and say we gave it a good try? That scares me. He has always been my support since college. How do I show him I want to stay married? My recent attitude hasn't made it easy. In the end, I just need to tell him how I feel, leave it to him, and hope he still loves me enough to forgive my mistakes. Yes, Bets. I know I made a mess of things, and I know it's easy for you to say I told you so. It would upset me if I didn't realize I deserved it. I have to go now. Sure, I'll keep you updated. Goodbye. The talk with her mom got a bit intense, and her mom called her silly and said she didn't deserve me. That made me smile. Claire was crying when she ended the call. Then came the conversation I was waiting for, the talk with Marky. I know he's not here, but you shouldn't call me. He knows, Marky, I've been with you, and I'm paying for everything when we go out. No, absolutely not. It would be over if he came home and saw you here. If we broke up, everything would change. The house is in his mother's name, so I can't touch it. Plus, he makes a lot more money than I do. Even if we split everything, it wouldn't be much. Not enough to live the way I want. I might get some support for a few years, but it won't be enough for my current lifestyle. How about this? You get a job and come back with a plan. Then we can talk. Don't call me again until then. She stared at the phone for a moment before going to the kitchen, mumbling in frustration and wiping her eyes. It felt like she was regretting something. When Claire got home, she looked surprised to see me by the grill. I had the day off, so I made 2 nice steaks, a salad, and even a baked potato, which was rare since we started our new meal plan. I had to admit it was one of her better ideas. I had lost 23 pounds, and I think she had lost about 15 as well. "Why are you home so early?" she asked. "I had some things to do, and it was slow, so I took a few hours off," I replied. She really wanted to know what I was up to, but seemed worried about my answer. "Is one of those for me?" she asked. "Of course, unless you don't want it. If so, I'll eat it tomorrow." "No! No plans. It smells great. Let me change out of these work clothes, and I'll make some lemonade." 20 minutes later, she came back with lemonade and 2 glasses. I turned away quickly to hide my smile. She looked nice in shorts that fit her well in a loose top. I kept my face neutral when I turned back. "It's nice to see you in those shorts again. They always looked good on you. If you prepare the salads, I'll take care of the steaks," I said. It felt so normal that it made me almost want to shout. For the last 4 months, Wade barely talked. She had avoided me, but now it seemed like the past year didn't matter. I wasn't ready to believe it. She seemed pleased by my compliment. We enjoyed our meal, and she talked more than she had in months. Finally, I sighed and put down my fork. "What's going on here? It feels like you're trying to make up for something. It's a bit late for that." "What are you hoping for, Claire? I didn't understand. You shut me out and spent money on what you wanted, leaving me to keep things running. I pointed it out, and suddenly am your best friend?" Her eyes widened, but I continued. "You know what? I find your attempt at making things better sad. If I thought for 1 second you were really sorry, I might feel differently. But right now, you're offering something that doesn't interest me. If you want to talk honestly someday, I'll listen. But I'm not holding my breath. For now, let's just pretend it's like it used to be. I cooked so you can clean up. Tomorrow, if you're here and I'm here, and you make dinner, you'll take care of the dishes and clean the kitchen." I stood up and left, hearing the crying start almost immediately after I turned away. It seemed sincere. This must be tough for her. A week passed. She came home from work every day and didn't go back out. Claire walked around as if she were on shaky ground, scared to move too much. I found I didn't mind. It felt freeing not to pick my words carefully to avoid arguments. I didn't think she liked my new attitude, but there was nothing she could do about it. She had no threats or actions left to regain control, and I could see it frustrated her a lot. I was getting ready for my next kayaking trip when she showed up in the garage and watched me for a few moments. "Can we talk? Do you remember how to have a conversation? What could you possibly say that would matter to me?" I could tell it upset her, but she had that determined look again, so she continued. "I want to talk about us." "What us? For over a year, it's just been you talking. You've never asked for my opinion on anything, so why bring it up now? What could you say that I'd want to hear?" Her sigh echoed in the garage. "I don't know. If I did, I would have said it already. You've tuned me out to the point that I feel useless to you. I know that I did the same to you first, but it hurts. Was I really that awful?" "Yes, it's tough to talk when the other person just waits for you to finish so they can say what they think. I've been thinking back over the past couple of years, trying to figure out when you started to stop caring. I think it was around the time Chelsea finished her senior year when you realized there wouldn't be any kids left at home. That should have been a great time for us. After 18 years of raising kids, we could focus on each other. I really messed that up, didn't I?" That's when the tears started, and I knew they were genuine, even though it felt a bit late. She was still there when I stepped back. The trip was easier this time, and I found a kayaking friend. Sarah was a few years younger and seemed to deal with unwanted attention from others on our trips, even though many of them were married. She wore a ring, which made me wonder where her husband was. "Do you mind? They won't bother me if I'm with you. Just so you know, I'm married, so don't expect anything," I said, showing her my ring. "Me too. Since we're not breaking any boundaries, maybe we could talk," she said. She was 32 and had been married for 10 years. Her husband was a lawyer, busy with work and putting off starting a family, so there were no kids. Her voice had a hint of sadness when she talked about that, so I showed her a picture of Chelsea. "This is my one and only, all grown up and off to college. I would have loved to have a child." "Then consider it. You have time, and even if you didn't, there's always adoption or surrogacy. It's not that simple." "It never is. It really comes down to what would make you happy, not anyone else. Trust me, I've learned a lot about that in the last couple of months. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you do if they don't care. Sounds like there are some problems there. It hasn't felt good for a couple of years. I don't know what she wants, but it doesn't seem to be me. I shared my feelings a few weeks ago. What did she say? What could she say? Reality is clearer than hope. She's been out with 3 guys so far. While nothing serious has happened, just going on these dates says a lot. If she hasn't made any serious promises yet, maybe there's still hope, someone said. Thanks for the support, but I'm not very hopeful. They thought she seemed confused about her choices. From what I've heard, she doesn't seem to think about the effects of her decisions. Maybe my talking to her opened her eyes. But is it too late? I needed to think about it. Probably. It's hard to keep a relationship going when it feels one-sided for so long. She made me feel invisible for over a year and a half. But when I finally pulled away, it looked like that wasn't what she wanted. I couldn't see a way forward. Trust was gone, and if we tried to start fresh, I felt she might just drift away again, leaving us in the same place. Okay, but at least give her a chance to explain herself. Have a real conversation before you walk away. This will help you understand where she is now, not where she was back then. I sat still for a moment, then playfully splashed her with my paddle. I hate it when women make sense. She laughed and said that came from living with a lawyer. She would have made a good one. When I got home, she seemed happy. She didn't complain or respond to my teasing. She even made my favorite dessert, chocolate silk pie. I almost asked her when she learned to cook, but remembered Sarah's advice. Instead, I just complimented her on the meal and the dessert. It was the first time she smiled since things had gotten tough. I made 3, but I'm not telling you where the other 2 are. In the past, I would have tried to find out, but I wondered if she still had her little secrets. It made me quiet. After she went to bed, I opened my laptop to review the videos. Besides going out for drinks with her best friends from college, it felt like another dull weekend. I listened in on her plan over the phone. She called Beth first. After talking for a bit, she invited Beth to join her and Jackie for a drink. No, he's not here. He has a new hobby that doesn't include me, and he's away this weekend. What? It's really frustrating. I don't know where he is or what he's doing. It's driving me crazy. Let me say it before you say I told you so. There was more on the other end of the line, and she sighed. I get it. I have no right to be high and mighty. My opinion doesn't matter to him, and yes, he's treating me differently now. Please don't lecture me. I know I've messed up. I don't need you to remind me. I just need my friends to support me for a little while. Thanks. See you at 8. Jackie's responses were less direct, but they seemed to have a serious talk. I couldn't help but think about Jackie's own divorce last year, which was similar to what Claire was facing now. Jackie had faced tougher issues and had warned Claire about tempting fate. Yes, I know you warned me, Claire said. I should have listened, but I had been wrong about many things. I wasn't sure if we would stay together. I doubted it because of how he was treating her. He's not being mean, just polite, but I feel like a piece of furniture. He makes plans without including me. I wish things were different, but the truth is that he barely sees me. I don't know what to do. Just then, Marky called, which lifted my spirits a bit. Listen, Marky, what part of leave me alone don't you understand? Do I need to say it more clearly? I should have figured out the truth sooner. You talk a lot, and yes, you're charming, but you're not as thoughtful as I thought. Find someone else to rely on. It should be easy. There are many others who would be interested. He was loud enough for me to hear him on the phone, even though I couldn't catch his words. My friend smiled as she held the phone away from her ear. When he calmed down, she said to him again, "Why don't you stop talking and do something? Come over and sort things out. I've learned how to handle myself well. You show up here and he'll take care of things. That would clear up a lot of future issues. Hello? Hello?" She hung up and smiled for a moment, then suddenly broke down in tears. And I mean really cried. The last time I saw her like that was when her grandmother passed away. Maybe part of the old Claire was still there. The next day I called and canceled the surveillance contract. I had already learned everything I needed to know, and keeping it would be wasting more money. I thought about it a lot over the next couple of days. I told my godfather about the conversations, and he smiled. "It seems you had more friends than you realized, son. Just take your time. Think it through. How does Chelsea feel about all this? She doesn't know, does she? Keep it that way until you make a choice. Then Chelsea called me unexpectedly, saying she was coming home this weekend. I would prefer you wait until next weekend. I have something planned this weekend, but I can cancel it if you need to come. I suspect you've talked to your mother, haven't you? She called. Why are you being so unfair to her? Ignoring her while you go out almost every weekend? She thinks you might be getting ready to file for a divorce. I took a deep breath to calm myself. Come home then. I won't be here, so you can spend time with her, talk about things, and share the truth. Maybe I'll see you next time. She was still talking when I hung up, which made me feel hurt. I had always taught her to think about all sides before deciding, but she had jumped to conclusions. My dear wife noticed I was upset, but she didn't say anything. We had dinner in silence, skipping dessert. Claire cleaned the dishes and sat down across from me. You're upset, and I guess it has to do with me. What did I do this time? Chelsea called me this afternoon. We had a talk. Claire suddenly looked worried. I hesitated at the last moment. How do you tell your daughter that I was about to make some bad choices? I just wanted her to come home, and I promise I'll tell her the truth when she gets here. Which version of the truth? Yours, mine, or the real truth? Claire rarely cried before this, but now it seemed she couldn't help it. I didn't offer comfort. I just pushed the tissues toward her. After she calmed down, she asked me what I wanted her to do. Tell her the truth. I was going to be away this weekend, but I'll make a trip and be back early. If you haven't talked things over by then, I'll show her everything. She looked deflated, smaller than I had ever seen. Claire got up with tired eyes and paused before going to her room. I'll tell her everything. Go out for the day, and I'll have it finished by the time you're back, she said. It seemed like she wanted to say more but decided not to, and walked away. Sarah noticed I wasn't focused, which is not good when you're on the water. I hit some rocks a couple of times and even flipped once. She steered us into a calm spot and kept the boat steady with her paddle. What's going on? You're not paying attention to the river. You could get hurt. Is it about home? Want to talk? We stayed there for 30 minutes, and I opened up about what was happening in my life. She shook her head and offered some advice. Here's a thought. Get your mind straight and think about visiting a counselor together. Talk it out and see if there's a way forward. If things are better, that's great. If not, it might be best to move on. Either way, you'll be much happier. Now let's paddle before we miss lunch. I bumped the kayak a bit, causing her to flip over, and I laughed when she resurfaced, calling my name. I hoped it was because she admired my paddling skills. I made amends with her over lunch by offering her a refreshing lemonade from my insulated jug. It was ice cold and freshly made, mixed with a hint of lime and basil for extra flavor. Sarah loved it and insisted I share it with the group. Our leader was a county detective, a big man with a kind face and a sharp mind. Do I need to pressure you? He asked. No, he'll keep it coming at least until the end of the season. After that, the basil will be gone, but we won't be out here much anyway. We all laughed, and I explained how I made the lemonade. I even promised to share some live plants with everyone. If you grew one and let it seed, you could have many more the next year. Later, while out on the water, Sarah mentioned that they would ask if I wanted to join them on a trip to Canada. That made me happy, but my smile faded as I got closer to home. My daughter greeted me at the truck with a big hug. Mom's being difficult. I hope I got my smarts from you. Did she fill you in? I think she missed some details, but I got the main points. What can you do? I shrugged. I'm not sure yet, but I can tell you I won't be going back to how things were after you left. I'm still figuring out where her sense of entitlement came from, but she knows I've had enough of it. Letting go of what bothers you is so freeing. Are you two staying together? I can't say. I believe she feels truly sorry, but is she sorry for what she did, or just sorry she got caught? Sometimes I think it might be time to end things. Other times I believe the old Claire is still in there and has woken up. For now, I haven't filed any papers. Want to go fishing tonight? She laughed and hugged me again. Think carefully, Dad. It can be hard for people to accept change and realize that good times might not come back. Yes, fishing sounds nice. Are you planning to invite Mom? I hadn't thought about it. We can bring her a takeaway and talk about how fresh it was. I chuckled at her expression. Go tell your mom to be ready in 30 minutes if she wants to come. You'll put the kayak away later, and well, take your car. I'll clean up. Chelsea loved steak and BBQ, but her favorite of all was a big seafood platter with crab legs. When she was little, I barely got to eat because I was busy cracking crab legs for her. When she finally had to do it herself, she complained that it was much sweeter when someone else did the work. We made a tradition early on. If it was her birthday, we would go out for seafood, and I would prepare all the crab legs she wanted. She always wanted a lot, especially when it was someone else doing the work. She glanced at the kayak before heading inside. Are you really going to take me out in that? No way! That's a one-person kayak. I'll borrow a canoe another time and we'll go out together. Now go get ready. As she shouted that, it reminded me of when she was just a kid. Mom, we're having seafood tonight. Dad says we've got 30 minutes to get ready, so hurry up. I'm glad we have 3 bathrooms. Otherwise, we never would have made it on time. I was ready after a shower, shaving, and putting on nice jeans and a pullover shirt. It took a bit longer for the others, but it was worth it. Both were wearing pretty sundresses, with their hair tied back and a light touch of makeup. I felt a bit nostalgic watching them, remembering the good times. Claire seemed a little anxious at first, but as we enjoyed the meal, she relaxed, teasing Chelsea about her love for crab legs and playfully telling me off for not liking catfish. I know catfish isn't quite seafood, but eating it at a fish camp in the South was always part of the experience. I thought it had a strong taste. I'd rather have flounder or deviled crab any day. We traded plates as usual. Claire went for the catfish, Chelsea took the crab legs, and I ended up with 3 deviled crabs. None of us offered to share our shrimp. On the way home, the cheerful mood faded, and our daughter dashed inside as soon as we parked. I suspected she had it planned, leaving me alone with Claire. Thanks for tonight. It felt like we were a family again. I saw my moment to ask, it was great. But can you tell me when you stopped being happy? Was it something I did, or did you just wake up one day and feel different? Can we sit on the swing? I've always felt at home there. I won't get too close, but if I do, just let me know, and I'll ease back. We bought that swing when Chelsea was 3. It had a cover over it, perfect for warm summer nights. I remember the smell of citronella candles and how Chelsea would cuddle in our arms. I also thought about the times we took a sleeping daughter inside, then shared comforting moments. I thought about replacing it a few times, but my girls would have been upset, so I fixed it instead. It didn't need another renovation. I paused for a moment, then shrugged. I wanted to get things out in the open. I held the gate for her, watching her walk in the moonlight, admiring how well she took care of herself, unlike many of our friends. I knew she worked hard to maintain it, and thought she might soon consider dating again, wanting to present her best self. She turned her head back, curious. What are you thinking about so much? You wouldn't like the answer. We settled onto the swing, swaying gently. I probably won't, but we need to talk. What is it? I was thinking about how you look and how much effort it takes. I wondered who you do it for, yourself or someone else. And please don't say it's for me. After a brief silence, she replied, I did it for myself. I saw how Janie and Meg changed over time, and after your comment about my weight that night, I decided that wouldn't happen to me. It was important to me, maybe for validation. I'm sure it was for no one else. What else did you do for yourself? You were tough on me for months. Was that a form of validation too? Were you unhappy in our life together? Is that why you dated? I know you didn't take that step, but you might have considered it. Then where would we be now? She paused for a moment before answering. I suppose I was being selfish. I was bored with our routine and with myself. I asked myself many times if this was it. I wanted to try new things, explore different hobbies, and maybe see new places. Sometimes I just wanted to forget my roles as a mother and wife, just for a short time, and be myself. I felt my anger growing. Do you remember when I told you similar things after Chelsea left? There were adventures I wanted us to have that you brushed off as silly. You didn't want those experiences with me, did you? I have to ask, were any of those 3 people you dated just test runs to see if they could replace me? Were those meetings to check if they were better? Don't answer. I probably wouldn't believe you. In the soft light of the moon, I noticed how pale she looked. I've messed everything up, haven't I? She said quietly. Maybe. But were those little adventures worth it? Was it worth risking our future together? What did you want? To grow old apart? You're still a wonderful person and you've shown me I could be replaced, but I'm not going anywhere just yet. There's someone out there who will appreciate sharing a life with me. Think about that. Suddenly, she slumped down, and I rushed to catch her. She felt so light in my arms. When she came to, she held on to me tightly. After a few moments, I gently let her go and asked, "Are you okay?" Tears filled her eyes, slow and gentle. "No. I feel like it'll never be okay again. I ruined my perfect life chasing dreams that turned out were special because you were beside me. I'm asking, is there anything I can do to make things right?" I remembered a friend's advice. "I can't promise anything, but would you think about seeing a marriage counselor? It might help us work through what happened. I'm willing to go to a few sessions to see what we can decide together." Her tears shifted from sadness to a hint of hope. "Really? You promise?" "He'll search on Monday and show you the options to choose from. I want someone experienced with good reviews, and we'll give it a try." Chelsea hugged us both when she left and asked me to walk her to the car. "Mom told me what you offered. I'm really glad, Dad. Please try to stay calm with your feelings, and if it works, that's great. If it doesn't, well, you tried, and I'll respect that, and I still want you to take me out on the water." On Tuesday, she approached me after dinner. "I made a list of counselors. They all seem reasonable, have been practicing for at least 8 years, and have good reviews. Look it over and get back to me so we can talk about it. I have one in mind, but I won't say who until you've checked them out." I spent the next 2 hours reviewing the counselors. I ruled out one person because I didn't like her manner, and I decided against one of the men for the same reason. I took notes and asked her to sit with me to discuss my preferences. She surprised me by quickly agreeing about the woman I didn't like and said she wasn't too keen on the man either. When I asked what her first choice would be, she answered right away. The husband and wife team. 18 years of experience, a balance of perspectives, and they have a great approval rating. We're on the same page then. Can you set up an appointment? Thursday at 4. You guessed my choice? She laughed softly, the first time I had heard that in almost 2 years. No, just a guess after 20 years together. I made appointments with everyone just in case. Smart thinking, honey. That reminds me of... I paused, thinking of happier moments. She likely sensed my mood and quickly changed the topic. They want us to have full checkups, including some tests not usually done. Why do they want that? Mr. Jenkins says sometimes problems in relationships can come from physical stresses that people don't know about. You don't have to go, but I've already booked the appointment. I'm still on your insurance, right? Of course you are. I might have changed my habits, but I haven't made any big life changes yet. Claire felt a mix of emotions, but decided to focus on the positive. That evening, she made chili pie, a dish we used to enjoy when we were starting out, and ground beef wasn't seen as fancy. Claire had perfected the recipe over the years until it had the right kick and flavor. She paired it with a cool cucumber salad topped with red onions and fresh dill. A bite after a hot chili mouthful was refreshing. I admired her cooking, and my smile made her blush slightly. "Don't think too much about it, Claire. Just enjoy," I said. We chatted about our lives, sticking to safe topics that wouldn't bring up difficult feelings. Claire was surprised when I started washing the dishes. We had a dishwasher, but I had always washed them by hand. She watched for a while before joining me with a towel to dry. She invited me back to our bed, emphasizing she wanted togetherness without any other expectations. I agreed to cuddle with her on the sofa until bedtime. When we parted for the night, she seemed happier than she had in a long time. We both had checkups. The doctor thought Claire had some hormonal changes due to menopause, but nothing to worry about. He even praised her for her weight loss. My appointment didn't go as well. He expressed concern about a lump on my left side. "What do you think it is?" I asked. "Without tests, I can't be sure, but remember this. Men can also be affected by health issues with their bodies. I want you back in 2 months for a follow-up. There are several reasons for a lump, most of them not serious, but it's better to be careful." He scheduled a test, which later showed everything was fine, but he insisted I get yearly checkups. We attended our first session with clean bills of health. The couple was in their late 40s, married for 22 years, and had started their practice after 2 years of experience with others. They seemed very practical and down-to-earth. As the sessions went on, it was interesting to see how the woman became the more straightforward one while the man was surprisingly gentle. They worked well together. In the first session, they separated us. The woman spoke with me while her husband talked to Claire. We discussed the journey that brought us to them, and she was glad for my honesty, even when I voiced my doubts about whether our relationship could be saved. She told me that next week, I would spend an hour with her husband while Claire would be with her. They said we shouldn't talk about what we discussed until after the second meeting. After that, we would all meet together. They recommended having at least 10 sessions before they would give us their thoughts. As we drove home, we were both quiet. "Do you want to hear about my session?" I looked over at her and saw tears in her eyes from the streetlights reflecting in the car. "No, and I won't tell you about mine either. Let's wait until the third session to see what the experts say." Then I smiled. "Now dry your eyes. It's late, and neither of us is in the mood to cook. How about going to Mario's?" It was her favorite Italian place, the one she found while we were dating. We used to go there often until last year, and I couldn't remember going back recently. Claire sniffled once, then wiped her eyes and smiled. "I'm getting the eggplant parmesan, and I won't share." "Fine," I said, pretending to be annoyed. "I think I'll get the loaded pizza, and don't even think about asking me for a piece." Of course, I ordered the large, knowing she would sneak a slice. She did offer to share hers, but I wasn't a big fan, so she ended up eating half of it before enjoying my pizza. As we left, we had 2 containers of leftovers. She picked a wine, and I chose a craft cider, but afterwards we just stuck to water. It was the first time she had been in my truck, and she remarked on how nice it was. "The old man I bought it from had all the features, and it was top off the line back then. I still don't know what half the buttons do. It gets me where I need to go, and it can carry what I need, so I'm happy. I'd like to improve the gas mileage a bit. Once I pay it off, I'd love to get a smaller car that gets good mileage for my commute." She laughed, and I remembered how much I enjoyed hearing her laugh. "Yeah, because your commute is so long." We lived just over 2 miles from my workplace. She had a longer drive of about 40 minutes, while I could get there in 5, which she often complained about. After telling her for years to find a job closer, I gave up. If she hadn't figured it out by now, she probably never would. When we pulled into the garage, she asked me to sit for a moment. "I want to thank you for tonight. The meal was wonderful, but I mean thank you for going to counseling with me. It shows me you haven't given up on us, and I want to build on that. I've made some mistakes, but I got a wake-up call, and I promise I won't let it happen again. I don't expect you to believe me right away, but I will show you through my actions that you can trust me. Before I go in, can we share a moment?" I thought it wasn't a great idea, but then she leaned in and I just went with it. The windows were foggy when she pulled back. After she waved and jumped out, I sat for a few minutes to think. Then I got out, took a shower, and went to bed in the guest room. The following week, after a day trip, I was happy with how things had gone. The water levels had risen due to recent rain, and the current was fast. We navigated some tricky rapids and no one spilled a drop. That evening, while we packed up, I was offered full membership in the club and an invite for the trip to Canada. When I got home, my smile wasn't as big as Claire's. She had one of those knowing smiles. Usually when she had that look, she was ready to surprise me. "I talked to some of your friends, and they're a bit upset with you." "Who?" "China and Alex." It took me a moment, but then I understood. "Why would you talk to them?" "Because I wanted to find out what you discussed. They didn't share much, but seemed very protective. Alex said I would make a big mistake if I lost you. China mentioned that if we did separate, we should tell them. I don't feel as close to her as I do to Alex. You should reach out to them. It looks like they might need some help." Then she smiled. "Don't worry. I gave them a good tip. China needed $50 for a new book, so I sent it to her. Alex's son is having his 3rd birthday soon, so I sent her 100 and told her to get him something nice from us." She sounded emotional when we ended our call, needing a moment to collect herself. "Now go talk to them. I won't peek." So I sat down in front of my laptop and searched for them. China was offline, but I left a message, and Alex replied quickly, moving us to a private chat. She was very cheerful. "I like your wife. You need to forgive her. She shared a lot, maybe too much, but she's honest with me since I'm a stranger who doesn't know her. She knows she made a mistake and feels bad about it. Are you going to stay with her? I'm not sure. I like the new Claire, but will it last, or will she go back to her old ways when things seem okay again? We'll see. She updated me about her life and said if she found a good job, her current work would be done. I wished her well and offered to be a reference for her. There was no reason to share how we met. Just before I logged off, she smiled. Your wife said if you talk to me, I should tell you this. Then she stood and smiled mischievously. Just for you. Have a good night and keep me updated. I knew she didn't show too much skin and rarely revealed herself. I sent her another 100, reminding her to save for her little girl's birthday. Then I sat back and thought about the last few months. We finally had a session together, and it was a little tough. I didn't leave without some lessons. The woman gently pointed out that I seemed to take Claire for granted and that I needed to pay more attention during our talks. That was nothing compared to her advice for Claire, where she stressed that the choices Claire made led to this point. He just got caught in a pattern of life and accepted it. Of course, he wanted more excitement when the kids grew up, but he accepted it if you were happy. Then the man spoke. The woman took over, and I was impressed by how well they communicated. Claire, that wasn't what you truly wanted. I don't believe you fully understood what you were looking for, just something different. Did you think your husband would be fine with you going out with other men, even if nothing happened? It would have caused issues later if you had kept doing that. I believe he still loves you but doesn't trust you to prioritize your marriage. If you're done with it, look him in the eye and tell him. Try to end it kindly. Claire shook her head strongly. No, I want my marriage. I want my husband, the man replied. Why? I didn't hear any real certainty in what you just said. You weren't happy with him. You don't go out with 3 men if you are. I think, Claire, we're wasting time until you admit the true reasons for your behavior. Speaking of time, it's time to finish this session. I have a task for you, Claire. Please explain why you think this marriage should continue and what you will do to make sure it does. Be honest. We can tell when one of us is not being truthful, and if one of us misses it, the other will catch on. He turned to me. You do the same thing too. Your thoughts matter a lot. In the end, it's your choice about this marriage. We drove home in silence. We stopped for Chinese food since we weren't in the mood to cook. After dinner and cleaning up, I asked her if she wanted to talk. Not tonight. I needed time to think before making any decisions, and tonight felt like a good start. I struggled with my reasons for staying married. She had changed everything I once wanted for us. Finally, I wrote just one line, because I still love her. When we arrived at her office, it looked like a never-ending book. They smiled at her. Well, take yours last. The woman took my note, read it, and smiled. Read it. I looked her in the eye and added a bit, but it was still short. Because I still love you. I don't love what you've become, but the old Claire? I believe she's still in there somewhere. Claire fainted. The man helped her up and checked on her while the woman smiled at me. Once Claire felt better, she tossed her list into the trash. I had so many reasons for you to stay, but promises don't mean much right now. I need to show you through my actions. The only promise I can make is to never be foolish again. If I start to slip, I'll leave and agree to whatever you want for the divorce. That's all I have to say. That's a good start. As we left, she held on to me tightly. It took 2 days before I returned to our bed, and 4 days after that to feel a deeper connection. It was everything I remembered and more. We had a long night and slept in the next day. We talked about everything. Claire decided to look for a new job for many reasons. She disliked her long commute, which felt like a waste of time. Although she didn't say it directly, the people around her made work harder. After a month, she found a position at my company, working under my management. Dan was still the CEO, but didn't interfere with daily tasks, while we met twice a week to keep him updated. He had to approve her job since I would be overseeing her. When I told him, he surprised me with a grin. I haven't mixed in since I passed it on to you. There will be 2 levels of management between you and the department, so you won't have to see each other unless necessary. If any problems arise, she'll need to leave. Good luck. We didn't ride to work together because her hours were normal, and mine were not. There were always issues needing attention, so sometimes she got home 2 hours before I did. How do you manage it? She asked me after a few weeks. Manage what? The stress. I hear your name called many times each day. I grinned. Most of it is minor. I prefer to tackle small issues early instead of letting them grow. That's why I have good managers. Most problems are handled before they even reach me. Then she asked why I hadn't taken my kayak out lately. I had other priorities. Well, I think you've taken care of those. You need to get back out there before your trip to Canada. Set aside a weekend when you're not with your club and take Chelsea with you. If she enjoys it, you'll give it a try. I'm not trying to interrupt your hobby. I'm curious about it. That was a surprise. 2 weekends later, I took my daughter out in a borrowed canoe. At first, she was nervous, but after about an hour, she relaxed and started to have fun. A few club members were on the water, and we paddled close together. Sarah was out with a friend, trying to spark her interest in the activity. When we stopped on a sandbar to stretch our legs, my daughter hugged me tightly. Thanks. For what? I asked. For reminding me to focus on my own happiness first. I talked to my husband about wanting a child before it's too late. At first, he was unsure, but as I shared how important it was for me, he started to come around. Just recently, he asked if I would prefer a boy or a girl, and I told him it didn't matter. He said he'd love to have a daughter and maybe a son later. I felt so emotional. I stopped using my birth control 3 weeks ago, and it takes a little time for it to leave my system. I hope for a summer baby. Chelsea listened to our talk. She initially frowned at the hug, but ended up smiling. It turned out she was really good at canoeing, quickly learning how to steer. With a bit of help, she had the basics down before we left the water. When we got out, she thanked Sarah for being my friend. I saw some girls watching Dad when he was paddling. Sarah smiled. Your dad isn't old, honey. He's in great shape and quite charming. A few girls have shown interest since we've been out, but he's redirected their attention politely. If he and your mom break up, many women will be interested in stepping in, I said. That comment didn't sit well, and she was quiet for the first part of the drive home before speaking up. I want you to stay together, Dad. Mom might have been frustrated, but she knows what she has to lose. I think it's safe to say she won't make that mistake again. I ruffled her hair as she got out of the truck. You might be right, but only time will tell. She smiled and dashed into the house, telling her mom she had a great time and suggesting they try it too. Claire smiled at me. I need an invitation first, and I'd like to see what it's like. 3 weeks later, I had Claire in a canoe. I picked a 19-foot one so we could all fit comfortably. Chelsea sat in the middle, cheering Claire on and giving her advice, even though she didn't know that much. Lean into it, Mom. Watch the rocks to the left. I told Chelsea to tone it down since she was making Claire more nervous. Claire screamed when we bumped into a rock in some small rapids, but after a while she just grunted and kept paddling. She got good at reading the water. Hard left, she would yell, then call out, straight down the middle, or right, right, no, your other right. Chelsea laughed so hard, she didn't even try to paddle. We passed a couple of guys from the club who took a second look at my daughters. Chelsea had made a moderate attempt at a swimsuit, while Claire had a stylish new one-piece. Don's son caught up with us at a rest stop, and before I knew it, Chelsea finished the ride in his canoe. He seemed like a good kid, but as a father, I felt protective of my daughter. We stayed nearby while they spent time together. When we landed, everyone took out their phones, which hinted that this might not be their last outing. On the way home, Chelsea asked her mom if she had fun. It was great. I never knew it could be like that. We're getting a canoe, and next time your dad can take his kayak. Then she paused and considered her words. If your dad wants to, that is. 2 eager faces turned to me as we got out of the car. Dennis has a boat he wants to sell. It's a 17-foot canoe made for whitewater, which means it's designed to stay afloat easily. I'll call him after dinner, and if we agree on a price, Mom and I will pick it up on Saturday. We can take it out the next time you visit. That night, after Chelsea went out with friends, Claire timidly asked if I would mind if they shared a hobby with me. I mentioned doing something like this when the house was empty. Why didn't you ask back then? And no, I don't mind. Maybe you'll stop yelling when we hit rough water and bounce off a rock if you're out long enough. She laughed and took my hand. I'll learn. Maybe we can convince Chelsea to wear something simpler. I saw the looks she was getting. Mom gave people looks too. You might want to adjust your top a little. It was a bit much at times. She giggled and instinctively covered her chest, then laughed again. So you let me ride the river like that? Did you have fun? I smiled. A little. You've always looked great, and all your hard work has really paid off. If anyone had said anything rude, I would have stepped in. She chuckled, that sweet sound from before, hugged me, and went to bed. When I went in, she was resting, covering her mouth with a pillow so she wouldn't wake our daughter. Our sessions were over, and the counselors gave us a summary of our progress. It looks like you two will make it to your 40th wedding anniversary, maybe 50 if you both stay healthy. Here's what you should take from this experience. Claire, speak up when something bothers you. Don't keep it inside. Jerry, try to be more open. If you don't like how things are, say something. Make sure Claire knows how you feel. We're counting on you both to do well. Now go home and don't come back for a while. I went on a trip to Canada. The natural beauty was incredible. The scenery was amazing. Claire bought me a nice camera to capture the trip. She and Chelsea joined our group for safer outings until they gained more experience, and they connected with everyone. Chelsea and Morgan, the guy she shared a canoe with, decided to explore their friendship when they returned home, even though they were going to different colleges. They knew it might only be casual, but they liked each other, so who knows what will come of it. Sarah and Claire became friends, and she and her husband joined our social circle. They talked almost non-stop about their plans while Greg and I discussed sports. He was excited about shooting and encouraged me to join him at the range. I hadn't shot in years, but I had so much fun that I bought a shotgun and started going skeet shooting a couple of times a month. Greg had the nickname Deadeye at the shooting club because he was so skilled. He won about 2 out of 3 contests he entered. He once told me he carried a gun for his job and for some of the people he defended. That made me a bit uneasy, and he smiled. It would have to be life or death before I ever had to use it. Besides the emotional impact, even if you were right, the legal trouble would be endless. I'd likely end up in court, and as a lawyer, I can tell you, courts are expensive. I hope you never have to deal with that. Thanks. The chances are in my favor that I won't. But I've had a few cases where the client didn't like the results, and my time as an assistant district attorney didn't win me many friends. Better safe than sorry, I had always said. A few weeks later, Sarah rushed through the door, full of excitement, and went right to Claire. "I'm going to have a baby!" she exclaimed. Greg walked in, smiling. "So much for waiting to share the news together." They were laughing and chatting about baby showers and baby rooms while Greg and I stepped into the kitchen for a drink. He looked at me and asked, "Do you think I'm ready to be a dad?" I couldn't help but laugh. No. But honestly, no man is ever really ready for it, not even me. It would be a challenge, but the first moment a baby wraps their tiny hand around your finger will make it all worth it. A few years later, I returned home from work and noticed a small car in our driveway, curious about who it belonged to. Claire greeted me at the door with a big, cheerful smile. "Hi, honey. We have a visitor from our past who needs a job. I told her we'd help." As I walked in, the woman stood up and looked somewhat familiar. She smiled. "You don't remember me, do you?" "Sorry, you look familiar, but I can't place you. Maybe this will help you remember." She made a playful gesture, and Claire laughed. "China?" She chuckled. "Typical. You can't remember my name or face, but you remember my figure after all this time. My real name is Garnet." I smiled back at her. "It's nice to see you again. I didn't expect to meet you." Claire stopped laughing. "She goes by Gary. She just finished her MBA and is looking for work. I told her to come here. Barbara will retire in 9 months, and Gary would be a great fit. Check her resume. You won't find anyone better." I looked at her papers and agreed with Claire. She would fit right in. "Come by the office tomorrow, Gary. I'll introduce you to the person you'll be replacing, and we can discuss salary." She had dinner with us, and as she was leaving, she hugged Claire. Turning to me, she said, "Just so you know, I wouldn't have done this if Claire hadn't encouraged me. You have a great wife." "I know that. See you tomorrow." As I walked back in, Claire stood up playfully. "They might not be the same, but you still appreciate them, right?" I smiled at her in response. We didn't make it to the bedroom that night. Instead, we ended up laughing together on the couch. "Aren't you glad we chose this fabric?" The next morning, while we were getting ready for work, I started thinking about Alex and what she was up to. Claire smiled and said, "She got married and just had a baby. Her husband runs a remodeling business and she works with him." "How do you know all this?" "I kept in touch with your friends. You helped them out from time to time without realizing it." Alex named her daughter after me. "If it had been a boy, it would have been named after you, right?" "At first, but it felt okay. She often asked me for advice. Once she said I was like a mother to her. They're visiting in July on their way to the beach. Her husband wants us to do some activities together. Chelsea will watch the baby while the oldest goes with us." "Does he know about her past work?" "I don't think so. She just wanted to move on, and she hasn't been in front of any cameras in years. I doubt anyone will recognize her." When they visited, Claire was overjoyed to see the kids and gave Chelsea thoughtful glances. She was still looking for someone special, but hadn't found anyone yet. Her job as a veterinarian kept her busy, but we knew she was seeing a young man whose father owned a large farm nearby. By then, she had a kayak, and soon he became a regular part of our group. At that point, China felt like a daughter to us. She and her fiancé were at the cookout, and I saw them talking and smiling at me. Then Claire and Chelsea joined us, and their laughter made me feel like I had gained another daughter. Our home started to fill with pictures of grandchildren. Life was good. My godfather retired 2 years later and gave me most of the company while keeping a small part for himself. They moved to Florida and bought a condo near my mother. When they told her about Garnet, she flew up to meet her. After 5 days, she said she liked Garnet, who was now seen as an unofficial granddaughter. After speaking with her new husband, my mom mentioned she hoped for at least 3 grandchildren and thought it was a good time to start a family. Gary is now the production manager, and I trust she could run things if I ever decide to retire. A year later, my mom, Megan, Claire, Chelsea, and Dan waited eagerly while Gary was in labor. Her dad showed up looking just as nervous as everyone else. Her mom had passed away years ago. I sat and smiled, enjoying the excitement in the room. When the nurse came out and announced it was a girl, tears of joy and laughter filled the air as the ladies went in 2 by 2 to meet her. When it was my turn, Gary wanted me to hold her, and as I looked into her eyes, I began to think about setting up a trust fund for her education. My mom and Gary's dad got along well during dinner a few days before she left. He is younger than her, and I teased her about it. She just smiled and said, "If it doesn't work out, I can always find someone else." They talk on the phone regularly, and he visits her during vacations. Gary laughed about it, saying, "If they end up together, my dad will be my step-grandfather." They all shared a good laugh. Chelsea had 3 kids, 1 daughter, followed 2 years later by twin boys. We have mostly given up boating, although we still take the families out on the lake sometimes. It takes several canoes for everyone to enjoy time together. About 2 years after we almost had a divorce, I was at a pool hall in the far side of town. My uncle used to play well and had a table in his basement where he taught all the nieces and nephews. I was decent, but my cousin Jenny was amazing. My Uncle Clyde said she was better than he had ever been. She won quite a bit playing pool, enough to help pay for her college. We used to play doubles tournaments, but as people recognized us, it became harder to find matches. I hadn't played in years, but Jenny's husband invited us over to see his new table made of fine materials. He was quite good, and while I didn't try too hard, he noticed my skills and grinned. He was in a billiards league and told his friends about me. They brought me in as a surprise player, and we won easily in our first season. The place was not as fancy as the spots we usually played, but the people were friendly. I found myself matched against a guy who was very skilled, and he won quite easily. My friends thought it was funny. We were leaving after the match when we saw a man running through the parking lot, yelling with someone behind him holding a baseball bat. I recognized the man in front of me as the parking lot lights flashed by. Marky was trying to leave, clearly surprised. As he passed by, I accidentally bumped my stick against his legs. His feet slipped and he fell forward, landing under a light. It broke my stick, but it felt worth it. His pursuer reached him right away, and loud sounds echoed in the lot. The man grabbed Marky by his hair and warned him, "If I ever catch you near my wife again, you will regret it." Marky nodded weakly. Just before the man walked away, He gave him one more hit that caused Marky to make a high-pitched noise, lose control, and faint. I stepped over him to get to my truck, surprised that he still kept the silly nickname even at his age. Greg was looking at me. "Do you know him?" "I know of him, and I can say without doubt he had it coming." He didn't say anything else, but he must have told Sarah, who then told Claire. She laughed when she repeated the name they had heard. No wonder he's been so happy lately. Before moving on to the second story, please let me know your opinion. Do you like the story long or short, a series or separate parts? The comments section is always welcome, and don't forget to let me know which of these two stories you like better. Seattle's autumn was pouring a persistent gray rain over the streets of Capitol Hill, but inside the charming craftsman home Derek Weston was renting, the air was warm and filled with light. The scent of pine wood mingled with fresh-brewed coffee, creating an aroma of stability, something that Derek, at 32, craved more than anything. He sat at the dining table, gazing out the window where maple leaves were turning a faded, weary yellow, and felt a profound sense of peace. Across from him, Mariah Keller, 29, was focused on a kitchen appliance catalog, her lips slightly pursed in concentration. Her honey-colored hair was swept into a loose bun, a few soft strands escaping to frame her delicate features. She was the night manager at Slate and Sage, a prestigious fine dining restaurant, but on the rare mornings she had off, she belonged entirely to this place, to him. "What do you think of this stone?" Mariah asked, not looking up, her long, slender finger pointing to a picture. "It would go with the moss green cabinets we talked about." "It's beautiful, Ree," Derek answered, his voice a low, warm hum. "As long as it has enough room for you to work your baking magic." Their conversations were always this easy, revolving around a future that felt clearly defined. They weren't just a couple in love. They were partners building a life. Weekends were spent not in loud bars, but planning for IVF treatments, researching suburban neighborhoods, and even opening a joint investment portfolio. For Derek, a remote compliance specialist whose life was governed by rules and order, Mariah was the charming, chaotic piece that made his world complete. And then there was Ranger, a German Shepherd mix they had rescued 3 months prior. He was curled up at Derek's feet, his black coat dappled with patches of warm brown. On weekends, the three of them would tend their small garden, cultivating rows of herbs, or experiment with making wine from grapes bought at the farmer's market. It was a picture of domestic bliss so perfect that sometimes Derek had to wonder if it was real. He remembered 2 years ago when his father passed away after a brutal illness. His entire world had shattered. He'd drifted through a fog of aimless days, his work stagnating, his spirit hollowed out. It was Mariah who had been there not with hollow platitudes, but with her quiet, steadfast presence. She cooked him hot meals, pulled him out of bed for walks in the rain, and listened for hours as he spoke about his father, never once passing judgment. She had become his emotional anchor, the one who had stitched the broken pieces of his soul back together. "What are you thinking about?" Mariah's voice pulled him back to the present. Derek smiled, reaching across the table to take her hand. "Just thinking how lucky I am to have you." Mariah looked up, her green eyes shining with a soft affection. "Me too, Dee. We're going to have it all, aren't we?" "All of it," he affirmed. "The house, the kids, and an even bigger vegetable garden." She laughed, a clear, bright sound he adored. But even in that moment of happiness, a vague, cold unease, like a draft slipping through a crack in the door, flickered in his mind. An illusion, no matter how perfect, was still just an illusion, fragile and easily shattered. He pushed the thought away, blaming it on the inherent fear of a man who had already lost so much. He squeezed her hand tighter, trying to use her warmth to banish the invisible chill. The change began subtly, almost imperceptibly. First, it was the scent. Mariah started wearing a new perfume, a heavy, musky fragrance, a stark departure from the light jasmine she had always loved. When Derek asked, she just shrugged. Felt like trying something new. Then came the late nights. Slate and Sage was always busy, especially with the holiday season approaching, but she used to text him, give him an ETA. Now the texts grew sparse, replaced by curt replies when he called, "We're slammed, Dee, the floor is chaos, he'll call you back." But she never did. Her phone, once left casually on the coffee table or nightstand, was now always screened down or tucked away in her purse. She took it with her into the bathroom. If Derek happened to walk by while she was texting, she would flinch and quickly lock the screen, a reflex he'd never seen from her before. "Is work that stressful lately?" he asked one evening, when she came home close to 2 in the morning, smelling of wine and the strange new perfume. "It's insane," she sighed, wearily kicking off her shoes. "New management, new protocols, plus we're getting ready for the Endo-Fire review. I'm exhausted." She said it convincingly, but her gaze slid away from his, fixing on some indeterminate point on the wall. Suspicion began to grow in Derek, a toxic weed creeping into the happy garden he had so carefully cultivated. He hated himself for thinking ill of her, the woman who had stood by him in his darkest hour. He told himself he was being paranoid, that work pressure really could change a person. The decisive blow came at the end of October. They had planned a weekend getaway to Spokane, a quiet escape from the city bustle. Derek had booked a charming little cabin by a lake, but 2 days before the trip, Mariah announced she had to cancel. "I'm so sorry, babe," she said over the phone, her voice laced with regret. "There's a surprise mandatory management training this weekend. I really don't want to go, but I have no choice." Derek felt a pang of disappointment, but tried to be understanding. "It's okay, honey. Work is work. We'll go another time." That Saturday night, lonely and bored, Derek was scrolling through Instagram, and then his heart dropped into his stomach. A mutual friend had posted a story from a party the previous night. In a blurry corner of the photo, he recognized Mariah's honey-colored hair. But what made him freeze was the next story, posted by a stranger he didn't know but who had tagged Slate and Sage. The story was only a few seconds long. A candle-lit table, 2 glasses of red wine, and the silhouette of a man sitting across from her. He couldn't see the man's face, but he recognized the silver bracelet Mariah always wore. And most importantly, the setting looked nothing like any training seminar he could imagine. The air in the room seemed to thicken. A cold dread snaked its way down Derek's spine. It wasn't proof, but it was a distinct crack in the perfect mirror of their relationship. A crack just large enough for the ugly truth to start seeping through. The opportunity to confirm his suspicions came by chance. Mariah's mother, Diana, was downsizing to a smaller apartment and needed help. Derek, playing the part of the devoted future son-in-law, didn't hesitate to volunteer. He spent all of Saturday hauling heavy cardboard boxes, assembling furniture, and hanging pictures. Late in the day, with the work nearly done, Mariah left her phone on the kitchen counter while she went out to the car for one last box. Derek was drying his hands when the screen lit up with a pop-up notification. He didn't mean to look, but the words were impossible to miss, hitting him like a punch to the gut. "Tell me the story again about him getting you that boring wooden ring." The wooden ring. Derek froze. He had made that ring himself for their 1-year anniversary, carved from a piece of olive wood he'd found on a hike. He'd spent weeks sanding and polishing it, engraving their initials inside. When he gave it to her, she had cried and told him it was the most meaningful gift she'd ever received. She wore it every day on her ring finger, and now it was boring. The accompanying skull and laughing emojis twisted his stomach into a knot, and the mysterious P. It definitely wasn't one of her girlfriends. A wave of rage and betrayal washed over him, but the cold, logical part of him, the compliance specialist, held him back. This still wasn't irrefutable proof. It could be a cruel joke. He needed more. He needed the truth, no matter how devastating. That night, back in their own home, Derek shut himself in his home office. His hand trembled as he scrolled through his contacts, stopping on a name he hadn't dialed in years, Greg Teller. Greg was an old friend from college, a quirky computer genius who had dropped out to pursue a career as a gray-hat hacker. They had been close once, but life had pulled them in different directions. Derek had vanished into the orderly world of corporate compliance, while Greg had plunged deep into the dark corners of the digital realm. Derek took a deep breath and hit call. "Weston?" Greg's voice came through, surprised but familiar. "Long time. You hit the lottery or heading to jail?" "Neither," Derek said, his voice dry. "Greg, I need your help. Something. Private." There was a short pause. Derek could hear the clatter of Greg's mechanical keyboard. Sounds juicy. I'm listening. I need access to someone's phone. Full access. Messages, call logs, location history, everything, Derek said, each word tasting of guilt and self-loathing. And it needs to be completely untraceable. Greg didn't ask why. He never did. Can do. But it won't be cheap, Weston. And you owe me a beer. Whatever it costs, Derek replied, the desperation in his voice undeniable. Just get me the truth. The meeting with Greg took place at a discreet coffee shop in Fremont, far from Derek and Mariah's usual haunts. Greg hadn't changed much, still skinny, still in a black hoodie and thick-rimmed glasses. He listened to Derek's request, his face betraying no emotion beyond the occasional nod. iCloud access is easy, Greg explained after hearing the story, stirring his black coffee. As long as she uses your home Wi-Fi, I can create a ghost backup. The harder part is tracking VPN logs if she's smart enough to use one. But nothing's impossible. Greg handed Derek a small USB-like device. Plug this into your home Wi-Fi router. It'll create a backdoor for me. Then just leave the rest to me. Returning home that night, Derek felt like a criminal. He waited until Mariah was fast asleep, her breathing steady and deceptively peaceful, then crept into the living room. His hands were cold as he plugged Greg's device into the back of the router. A tiny green light flickered on, like a digital eye opening inside his home. From that day on, Derek lived a double life. On the surface, he was the attentive boyfriend, asking about Mariah's day, watching movies with her, walking ranger. But inside, a tempest was raging. He checked his phone constantly, waiting for a message from Greg. Every notification made his heart leap into his throat. Paranoia began to gnaw at him. He analyzed every word Mariah said, every gesture she made. Was her smile genuine or an act? Was that hug meant as comfort or to conceal guilt? He began to withdraw emotionally, erecting an invisible wall. He stopped sharing his deepest thoughts. He stopped talking about their plans to buy a house, about IVF. Mariah seemed to notice the change. "You've been distant lately, Dee," she said one evening. "Is something wrong?" "Just stress at work," he lied, repeating her own excuse back to her. He looked at her, trying to find a sign of the truth in her eyes, but all he saw was the beautiful face he had once loved, now a strange and unreadable mask. The atmosphere in their home shifted. The warmth was gone, replaced by a suffocating tension. The silences between them were no longer the peaceful quiet of understanding, but the void of the unsaid. Derek felt like he was living with a ghost, a stranger wearing the face of the woman he loved. And he knew that soon, the digital ghost Greg was creating would give him the answers. The initial dark sadness was morphing into a sick suspicion, ready to erupt into uncontrollable rage. 2 weeks later, the bomb detonated. Derek was in the middle of a mind-numbing virtual meeting when his phone buzzed. It was a message from Greg. "Done. Check your email. Brace yourself." Derek's heart hammered against his ribs. He hastily ended the meeting, mumbling an excuse about an urgent matter, and locked his office door. He opened his email and found an encrypted file. After entering the password Greg had provided, a series of folders appeared, neatly organized by date and data type: SMS, iMessage, WhatsApp, photos, voice memos, location history. He clicked on the messages folder first. Over 300 recovered texts between Mariah and a man saved in her contacts as Philip Green. Derek started to read, and his world shattered into a million pieces. The first messages dated back to late 2022, right around the time Derek was caring for his mother after her surgery, and he and Mariah had begun seriously discussing having children. They started as workplace flirtations, inside jokes about other colleagues. Gradually, they became more personal, more intimate, and finally devolved into brazenly filthy sexting. Philip: "Missed you like crazy last night. Wish you weren't a pillow." Mariah: "Haha, you're not so bad yourself, but I'm home with him. Gotta play the good girlfriend." Derek felt a wave of nausea. He scrolled on, finding messages where they planned their trysts. Mariah's surprise training seminars and long shifts were actually date nights in Olympia, where Philip lived. They had gone to concerts, dined at fancy restaurants, and spent nights in hotels Derek knew nothing about. Philip, Tacoma this weekend? There's a cool new speakeasy. Mariah, let me see. Have to come up with an excuse for D. Probably say I'm visiting an old friend. And then he found the texts about the wooden ring. Philip, still wearing that ugly wooden ring? Mariah, have to. Keeps him convinced. You have no idea, he made it himself. It's so fucking cheesy. Philip, tell me the story again about him getting you that boring wooden ring. It was the exact message he had seen. P was Philip. Everything clicked together with brutal, perfect cruelty. They hadn't just deceived him. They had turned his most sincere gestures of love into a private joke. The initial shock quickly gave way to a cold, profound fury that settled deep in his bones. Their relationship had been a lie long before he ever noticed the first cracks. If the texts were a punch to the gut, what Derek found in the video and audio folders was a knife straight through the heart. Greg had managed to breach the security camera system at Slate and Sage. Among hours of benign footage were several specifically bookmarked clips. Derek clicked on one. The grainy black and white image from a camera inside the restaurant's walk-in cooler appeared. He saw Mariah, in her manager's uniform, talking with a tall, confident-looking man, Philip Green. He cornered her between shelves of meat and produce, and then, amidst the cold vapor, they began to kiss ravenously. Philip's hand snaked up under Mariah's blouse as she let out a muffled laugh. Another video was worse. The same walk-in cooler, but their actions had gone much, much further. Derek couldn't watch it all. He slammed the laptop shut, gasping for air. Her workplace, the place where she had built her career, was the stage for their sordid, treacherous affair. He forced himself to calm down and opened the voice memos folder. It contained audio notes Mariah had sent to Philip on WhatsApp. The sweet voice he had once loved so much was now spewing words of poison and contempt. He has absolutely no idea. I feel like I deserve an Oscar for this performance. He was asking me about looking at houses in Bellevue yesterday. The poor thing. Sometimes I just want to end it already. Life with him is so boring. Derek is so safe, so predictable. Has the stable option, you know? But you, Phil, you're the one who makes me feel alive. Finally, Derek opened a folder labeled Transactions. Greg had traced a secret Venmo account belonging to Mariah. Philip regularly sent her small sums of money labeled as tips or bonuses, accompanied by flirtatious notes. Their relationship wasn't just clandestine, it was transactional, which made everything feel cheap and sordid. Derek sat motionless in the darkness of his office. He no longer felt sad. The sadness had been incinerated, leaving only the ashes of humiliation and a primal rage. He had given this woman everything, his love, his trust, his future, and she had responded by stomping on it all, making him a fool in a play she directed. The deeper he dug, the uglier the truth became. Greg hadn't just stopped at personal data recovery. He had used his skills to infiltrate Slate and Sage's internal servers. In the human resources files, Derek discovered a shocking detail. Philip Green had been the subject of a sexual harassment complaint from a female server earlier in the year. The incident had been handled internally, and the person who had defended Philip, dismissing the complaint as a misunderstanding and calling the server overly sensitive, was none other than Mariah Keller. She wasn't just his lover. She was his accomplice, covering up his misconduct to protect their illicit affair. She had sacrificed the safety of a subordinate to protect her lover. In Mariah's personal Google Drive, protected by a password Greg cracked with insulting ease, Philip My King 22, Derek found encrypted folders filled with provocative photos of her pictures taken specifically for Philip. She wore lingerie Derek had never seen, in poses he had never witnessed. It was a completely different person, a version of Mariah he never knew existed. Derek felt his mind fracturing. The happy memories he had with Mariah were now all contaminated. The anniversary dinners, the hiking trips, the loving words, all of it felt fake. He felt a profound humiliation, not just for being betrayed, but for being so blind, so trusting. The heat of his anger was gone, replaced by a block of cold, sharp ice. He didn't just want to end this relationship. He wanted to destroy them. He wanted them to taste a fraction of the pain and humiliation he was enduring. He stared at his computer screen, where Mariah's smiling face in a photo of the two of them still served as his desktop background. He had once considered her his emotional anchor. Now he realized she was the storm that had sunk his ship. Derek didn't cry. He didn't smash things. Instead, a terrifying calm settled over him. He walked to his printer and began a meticulous process. He printed out every text message, every email, every Venmo transaction log. He took screenshots of the explicit videos, printing them on high-quality photo paper. He made copies of the audio files. His office transformed into a war room. Each piece of evidence was placed in its own manila folder, carefully labeled Text November 2022, Walk-in Cooler Video 1, HR Complaint P. Green. The chaos of his emotions was being channeled into the order of a dossier. It was how he processed crisis, how the mind of a compliance specialist worked. He was building a case file against his own life. He no longer thought of tearful confrontations or agonizing arguments. Those feelings belonged to the Derek of yesterday, a naive, foolish man. Today's Derek was someone else, a person forged in the fire of betrayal. He realized that a simple emotional release would not be enough. He needed a calculated retribution, a psychological campaign that would leave permanent scars on the lives of Mariah and Philip. He sat among the piles of evidence, the glow of the monitor illuminating his expressionless face. He hadn't just been lied to. He had been mocked. They had made him an unwilling spectator to his own humiliation. Derek picked up a printout of Mariah and Philip kissing in the walk-in. He stared at it, not with pain, but with a cold, glacial resolve. He would not let them continue their play. He would be the one to bring the curtain down. And when that velvet curtain fell, it would bury them all. He whispered to himself in the silent room, his voice cracked but laced with a lethal certainty. They didn't just lie to me, they rehearsed the lie. November brought a deeper shade of gray to Seattle, the rains turning cold and heavy. Derek drove south to Tacoma, the industrial port city, whose gritty brick buildings and no-nonsense atmosphere felt a world away from his trendy Capitol Hill neighborhood. He had an appointment in a steel and glass office building, home to the law firm Rayburn and Associates. Dennis Rayburn, 38, was unlike any lawyer Derek had ever met. There was no warmth or sympathy in his demeanor. He wore a perfectly tailored Italian suit, his hair slicked back with gel, and his eyes were like razors, constantly assessing Derek from across a polished mahogany desk. His office was starkly minimalist, decorated only with expensive abstract art and a view of the dreary Tacoma port. Derek didn't recount his heartbreak. He simply placed a slim stack of folders on the desk. "This is the summary," he said, his voice flat. "The original evidence is secured on multiple servers." Dennis pulled on a pair of thin latex gloves, an odd but professional quirk, and began to leaf through the documents Derek had so carefully compiled. He scanned the printed texts, the security camera stills, and the Venmo logs. He didn't flinch, his face a mask of intense concentration. After about 10 silent minutes, he leaned back in his chair and peeled off the gloves. "Mr. Weston, this isn't a divorce case," Dennis said, his tone sharp and clinical. "This is a fraudulent asset liquidation with aggravating factors. Miss Keller was not only unfaithful, she was complicit in fostering a hostile work environment and likely abused her position. We have a great deal of leverage here." Derek nodded. "I'm not interested in a long, drawn-out legal battle. I want a swift and devastating kill, legally speaking." A grim, appreciative smile touched Dennis' lips. "I like the way you think. Listen, the first thing we do is secure the digital assets. All the evidence you have, we create time-stamped copies and place them in secure escrow. Second, financials. The joint investment portfolio, you're the primary account holder, correct?" "I am," Derek confirmed. "Good. We will begin the process of quietly isolating your finances. Move the majority of assets into a new account solely in your name. Change passwords. Cut her access to anything you legally can. Since you aren't married, it's perfectly above board. She won't realize what's happened until it's too late." Dennis stood up, pacing his office. "The most important part is the silent divorce. We won't file anything yet. Well, prepare everything. When the time is right, we'll unleash it all at once, giving her zero time to react or prepare. We'll freeze the assets, file a civil suit for emotional distress based on the fraudulent pretense of the relationship, and send a courtesy information package to the senior leadership at Slate and Sage. He stopped and looked Derek squarely in the eye. Our plan isn't to win in court. The plan is to ruin her and this man so thoroughly socially, professionally, and financially that they have no choice but to accept whatever terms we offer. Are you prepared for that? Derek looked out the window, where a massive container ship was slowly pulling out of the port, disappearing into the fog. The rage inside him had crystallized into a clear purpose. "Am prepared," he said, his voice cold as steel. "Tell me what I need to do." Returning home, Derek donned the mask of an assassin. He had to play the part of the oblivious boyfriend, and he played it to perfection. His pain had taught him how to compartmentalize, and now he weaponized that skill. That evening, Mariah came home looking weary. Instead of the tense silence of the previous weeks, she was met with the aroma of her favorite seafood pasta and a chilled glass of Chardonnay. Derek smiled at her, a smile that didn't reach his deadened eyes. "Rough day?" he asked, his voice a convincing imitation of concern. Mariah was surprised by the sudden shift. Yeah, pretty stressful." Her guard lowered. "Thanks, Dee. This is really nice of you." In the days that followed, Derek became the perfect boyfriend she remembered. He booked her a spa day for the weekend. He cooked elaborate dinners. He listened to her complain about work, nodding and offering vapid advice. He took Ranger on long walks in the park, sending her pictures of the happy dog. Every act of kindness was a sugar-coated dose of poison. Every smile was a hidden blade. He watched her, studying her like a scientist with a specimen. He saw the relief in her eyes, saw her begin to believe that his period of distance had just been work stress and that things were now back to normal. And then, the prey took the bait. One evening, as they sat on the couch watching an old movie, Mariah turned to him, a secretive excitement in her expression. "You know," she began, "I think I might be up for a big promotion." "Really? That's fantastic, Rye!" Derek exclaimed, feigning joy. "What's the role?" "It's not official yet, but Liam, you know, one of the co-owners is planning to expand with a new branch in Bellevue. And Philip. You know Philip, the manager from Olympia? He and I have been drafting a new business proposal. If it gets approved, he'd be the regional director of operations, and I'd be the general manager for the entire Seattle branch." A cold current went through Derek, but he kept the smile fixed on his face. "That sounds like a huge deal. You two must have worked hard on that." "We have," she said, oblivious to the acid in his tone. "We've spent a lot of time on it. It would be a major step up for both of us." That night, after Mariah was sound asleep, Derek quietly opened his laptop. Just as he'd expected, among the newly extracted messages from Greg was a long conversation between Mariah and Philip. They weren't just discussing the business plan. They were planning their life together after the promotion, discussing when Mariah would finally pull the plug on Derek. Mariah: "Hez buying all of it. I told him about our plan tonight. He even congratulated me." Philip: "The fool is so predictable. Just keep him happy a little longer. Once we get the appointments, you'll have enough money to leave comfortably." Derek screenshotted every single message. He saved them in a new folder he titled Leverage Promotion Plan. She had handed him the noose herself. He would just have to wait for the right moment to pull it tight. He closed the laptop, looked over at the sleeping Mariah, and for the first time in weeks, felt a twisted sense of power. The game was on, and he was in control. Derek and Greg met again, this time in Greg's messy University District apartment, which smelled of stale coffee and hot servers. "So now you want to run a smear campaign?" Greg asked, raising an eyebrow behind his glasses. "I want to create paranoia," Derek corrected. "I want them to feel like they're being watched from every corner. I want their colleagues to start whispering, to start doubting. Before the storm hits, I want to suffocate the air around them." A grin spread across Greg's face. "Psychological warfare. I like it. What do you have in mind?" A few hours later, an anonymous Instagram account was born. At Slate Shame 2023. It had no public posts. Instead, Greg began sending private messages to a curated list of Slate and Sage employees, the known gossips, the ones who seemed to dislike Mariah. The content was subtle. A long-distance, extremely blurry photo of a couple kissing in a tight space with the caption, The walk-in cooler is hotter than you think these days. Slate and Sage secrets. An audio clip, distorted so the voices were unrecognizable, with only the faint sound of a giggle and a clipped phrase, "Oscar for this performance." Accompanied by the text, "Some managers really are talented actors." The drops were small, vague, but powerfully suggestive. They offered no clear proof, but they planted seeds of doubt. Soon the atmosphere at Slate and Sage began to change. Mariah and Philip started noticing strange looks, whispers that would die down the moment they entered a room. Their confidence began to fray. "Something weird is going on," Mariah told Derek one night, her face etched with worry. "People at work keep looking at me like I'm a criminal." "You're probably just imagining things," Derek said, patting her shoulder gently, while his heart beat a cold, satisfying rhythm. The next step of Derek's plan was more targeted. The target, Liam Ross, the 34-year-old co-owner of the restaurant chain. From what Derek could gather, Liam was a savvy businessman who prized the reputation and brand of Slate and Sage above all else. He was the kind of person who would never tolerate a scandal that could affect his bottom line. Greg prepared a black, unlabeled USB stick. On it was a single video file, the clearest clip of Mariah and Philip in the walk-in cooler, unedited and unblurred. The USB was placed in a plain brown envelope with no return address. Inside, a single slip of paper contained a typed message. "There is a cancer growing in your company. See for yourself." On a rainy afternoon, an anonymous courier, hired by Greg, left the envelope at the reception desk of Liam Ross' office building. The bait was set. Derek knew a man as careful as Liam wouldn't ignore such a warning. He would watch it. And when he did, the foundation for Mariah and Philip's ruin would be firmly laid. Derek hadn't anticipated his attack opening a new front, one that came from Philip's own family. One evening, he received a message on his personal Instagram account, not the @SlateShame 2023 one. The sender was a teenager named Hunter Green. Hunter: "Hey, are you dating a woman named Mariah Keller?" Derek froze. He checked the kid's profile, photos of skateboards and rock bands, and a few older pictures with Philip Green captioned "Dad." Derek: "Why do you ask?" Hunter: "Because I think my dad is cheating with her, and it's destroying my mom." A brief exchange led to a video call. Hunter, a 17-year-old with sad eyes and a face that looked too old for his years, told Derek everything. He spoke of his father's distance, the sudden business trips, the secretive phone habits. Hunter had suspected for a long time, and when a friend who worked part-time at Slate and Sage told him about the rumors started by @SlateShame 2023, he connected the dots. "My mom's a wreck," Hunter said, his voice trembling with anger. "He's done this before. Do you want to talk to her?" The next day, Derek spoke with Sarah, Philip's ex-wife. Her voice was tired but firm. She confirmed Hunter's story. Years ago, while they were still married, Philip had an affair with a server at the restaurant he was managing at the time. The affair came out, causing a minor scandal, and it was the final straw that led to their divorce. "He's a serial predator, Mr. Weston," Sarah said, her voice dripping with bitterness. "He doesn't change. He just finds new prey. He uses his position of power, and women like your Mariah, they enable him." This information was gold. It was no longer a simple case of infidelity. It was a systemic pattern of abusive behavior. Sarah's testimony, combined with the old HR complaint Greg had found, painted a complete portrait of Philip Green, a predator in a manager's suit. A new emotion crept into Derek's plan for revenge. It was no longer entirely about his own personal humiliation. Now, he felt he was carrying out a form of justice for himself, for Sarah, for Hunter, and for the server whose voice Mariah had silenced. He carefully documented Sarah's testimony, adding it to the main file. The final package for Mariah and Philip was getting heavier. He wouldn't just expose their lie, he would utterly demolish the reputations and careers they had built on the pain of others. The storm was ready. Now all he had to do was wait for the right day to unleash it. December brought with it a fraudulent holiday cheer and the biting cold of a Seattle winter. The Slate and Sage end-of-year gala was held in a lavish ballroom at the Four Seasons Hotel, overlooking the glittering lights of Elliott Bay. The space was opulently decorated with flocked Christmas trees, warm string lights, and ribbons the color of Merlot. The air smelled of cinnamon and pine, mingling with the festive clinking of champagne flutes and the smooth sounds of a live jazz band. Derek Weston RSVP'd as Mariah's Plisson. He wore a perfectly fitted charcoal gray suit, looking alarmingly calm and elegant. As he entered, Mariah, radiant in an emerald green silk dress, rushed to his side, linking her arm through his possessively. "You came! I was worried you wouldn't make it," she whispered, her smile brilliant but tight around the edges. "How could I miss your big night?" Derek replied, his voice even, a polite, vacant smile on his face. He scanned the crowd. Philip Green stood with a group of other managers, looking smug in an expensive suit. He and Mariah exchanged a quick glance, a flicker of triumph and conspiracy they thought no one else could see. They were on top of the world, believing their promotions were all but guaranteed. In another corner of the room, Greg Teller, posing as a freelance photographer brought as a guest by another employee, was quietly adjusting the lens on his camera. He wasn't just documenting smiles and handshakes. He was chronicling the final moments of this false peace. He was the scribe for the execution to come. Derek accepted a glass of champagne from a server. He watched everything with unnerving calm. He saw the furtive glances and the whispers behind Mariah and Philip's backs, the fruits of the At Slate Shame 2023 campaign. The paranoia had been sowed. Tonight, it would bloom. He caught Liam Ross's eye from across the room. The young co-owner looked tense, his eyes constantly sweeping the crowd, occasionally landing on Philip with an unreadable expression. The USB had done its work. Liam knew. He was just waiting for the right moment, and Derek was about to give it to him. After dinner, the lights in the ballroom dimmed. Liam Ross and the other co-owner took the stage. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Liam began, his voice amplified by the microphone. "This has been a challenging but incredibly successful year for Slate and Sage. And to celebrate the tireless dedication of our team, we've prepared a short video looking back at some of our most memorable moments from 2023. The large screen behind the stage lit up. A professionally edited montage began to play, showing images of chefs hard at work, servers smiling at customers, beautifully plated dishes, and moments of team celebration. The soundtrack was an upbeat pop song. Mariah squeezed Derek's arm, whispering, "Look, that's when we won Restaurant of the Year." She looked genuinely happy and proud. The video played for about 2 minutes, and then it began to glitch. The screen flickered. The audio sputtered and died. A few murmurs rippled through the crowd, assuming it was a technical issue. But then a new image appeared on the screen. It was grainy and black and white, filmed from a high angle. A hush fell over the entire room. Everyone recognized the restaurant's walk-in cooler, and then they saw Mariah and Philip. The clip had no sound, but their actions were louder than any words. They were kissing, not a fleeting peck, but a deep, carnal kiss. Philip's hand slid down to grip the back of Mariah's dress. A collective gasp went through the ballroom, then another. Within seconds, the room was shrouded in a dead, shocked silence, broken only by the chorus of clicks as dozens of cell phones were raised to record the screen. Mariah's face was ashen. Absolute, unadulterated horror was written in her eyes. Philip stood frozen, his mouth agape, the wine glass in his hand trembling. On stage, Liam Ross showed no surprise. He simply stared daggers at Philip, then turned his back and strode angrily off stage. The storm had officially made landfall. As the video cut abruptly to black, Mariah began to panic. "No, that's not real!" she shrieked, her voice cracking with fear. "It's fake, a deep fake. Someone is trying to frame us." But no one believed her. The evidence was too raw, and the weeks of rumors now had their explosive validation. Philip tried to grab her arm, to pull her out of there, but they were surrounded by a sea of faces, all staring with a mixture of disgust and morbid fascination. In the midst of the chaos, Derek Weston calmly stood up. He deliberately unhooked Mariah's arm from his and walked toward her. All eyes turned to him, the cuckolded boyfriend. He stopped in front of Mariah, looking directly into her tear-filled eyes. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He simply spoke, his voice just loud enough for those nearby to hear, each word clear and sharp. "That was just the trailer," he said. The full feature is on HR's desk. The statement was a kill shot. It not only confirmed the video's authenticity, but revealed that this was a planned, meticulously orchestrated attack. At that moment, a young server burst into tears. "She bullied me for months," the girl sobbed out loud. "She threatened to fire me because I refused to work unpaid overtime. She's a monster." A few other employees began to nod in agreement. The dam of silence had broken. A flood of long-suppressed grievances began to pour out. And then, the final blow came from an unexpected source. The phones of several senior managers buzzed in unison. It was an email sent to the entire Slate and Sage leadership team. The sender, Diana Keller, Mariah's mother. Diana, having been sent the video by a horrified friend at the party, had called Derek in a state of shock. He had simply and calmly told her, "It's the truth, Diana. I've known for a while." Realizing the truth of her daughter's character and terrified for the family's reputation, she had done the unthinkable. She sent a damning email, recounting the lies and manipulations Mariah had subjected her to, and demanding the company take severe action to salvage its honor. Mariah's implosion was complete. It was public, total, and irreversible. Mariah didn't come home that night. But the following afternoon, she appeared at the door of Derek's apartment. She was no longer the confident manager or the charming girlfriend. She was a firestorm of rage and despair. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were swollen from crying, and her face was a mask of pure fury. "You ruined my life!" she screamed the moment Derek opened the door, storming inside. Ranger barked anxiously and retreated behind Derek's legs. "I didn't ruin anything," Derek replied, his voice devoid of heat. He closed the door. "I just showed everyone the truth you created." "The truth? You call that the truth? You spied on me. You hacked my phone. You're a sick bastard!" Mariah yelled, pacing the living room, her hands gesturing wildly. "Everything I built, it's all gone. All because you couldn't handle the fact that I didn't love you anymore." "You haven't loved me for a very long time, Mariah," Derek said, his calm unwavering and terrible. "Not since you were sleeping with him in a walk-in cooler. Not since you were mocking the ring I made you. Not since you were planning a future with him while still talking about having children with me. That was the ruin. I could have left peacefully. We could have broken up like adults." "No," Derek cut in. "You didn't want to break up. You wanted to keep me as a backup plan, a safety net while you built your new life with him. You were acting. I simply dropped the curtain on your play." Mariah's rage peaked. She lunged forward and screamed in his face, "You are a monster!" In her fury, she swung her hand and slapped him hard across the face. The sound of the slap echoed in the quiet room. Derek didn't flinch. He just took a single, silent step back, raising a hand to his reddening cheek. He looked at her, not with anger, but with a cold, distant pity. Then he pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "What are you doing?" Mariah stammered, panic finally eclipsing her rage. "I'm calling the police," Derek said. "You just assaulted me in my own home." The police arrived 10 minutes later. No arrest was made, but they filed an incident report, taking statements from both of them. Their presence was the final, definitive end. When the officers left, Mariah stood there, utterly defeated, tears streaming down her face. "You won," she whispered, her voice a raw rasp. "You took everything from me. Are you happy now?" Derek looked at her one last time, at the woman he had once loved with his entire heart. "You destroyed us," he said. "All I did was expose the truth." He opened the door and gestured for her to leave. She walked out like a ghost. As the door clicked shut, Derek stood alone in the silence of his apartment. He didn't feel happy. He just felt empty. The storm had passed, leaving nothing but wreckage in its wake. The fallout from the party was swift and brutal. Philip Green was fired immediately. He was locked out of all company systems and escorted from his Olympia office like a common criminal. With his ex-wife's testimony and the resurrected HR complaint, his career in restaurant management in Seattle was over. Mariah suffered the same fate. She was not only terminated but effectively blacklisted from the city's hospitality scene. No high-end establishment would touch a scandal that public. Her Instagram account, once a curated gallery of a perfect life, was deactivated after being flooded with hateful comments. Shunned by her friends and with nowhere else to go, she packed her things and quietly left Seattle, returning to Spokane to live with her parents. She vanished from Derek's life like a phantom. The house in Capitol Hill was now eerily quiet. Derek purged it of Mariah's presence, packing away her photos, donating her clothes. He existed in a state of ordered emptiness, working, caring for Ranger, and trying to piece his life back together. A few days after Christmas, Derek received a voicemail from Hunter Green. He hadn't spoken to the boy since that terrible night. He hesitated for a moment, then pressed play. Hunter's voice came through, hesitant but sincere. "Hey, Mr. Weston, I wanted to thank you. What you did, it was awful, but it gave my mom and me closure. My mom was able to confront my dad with all the proof. For the first time in years, she seems at peace. You gave me an end to it, and you gave my mom her peace back. So, thank you." Derek sat on the couch, the phone in his hand. He played the message again, and then, for the first time in months, he wept. They weren't tears of rage or self-pity. It was a true, cathartic release. The emotional walls he had built around himself began to crumble. He cried for the love that was lost, for the innocence that was shattered, for the man he had become in the process of his revenge. But he also cried for the tiny sliver of redemption. In the rubble of his destruction, he had accidentally brought peace to someone else. Ranger nudged his head into Derek's lap, whining softly as if in comfort. Derek hugged the dog tightly, letting the hot tears run down his face. The healing was finally beginning. To process the chaos in his mind, Derek began to write. He started an anonymous blog he called the Offload Journal. He told his story from beginning to end, not for sympathy or praise, but simply to organize the thoughts in his own head. He wrote about love, betrayal, rage, and the cost of revenge. His writing, with its raw honesty and deep psychological insight, unexpectedly gained traction. The blog started getting significant traffic from divorcees, trauma survivors, and others who had been betrayed. They shared their own stories in the comments, forming a small community of broken souls trying to heal. One day, he received an email from a regular reader. Her name was Anna, a 30-year-old writer who specialized in topics of psychological trauma. She said his story had moved her deeply and offered to buy him a coffee. They met at a quiet cafe in Queen Anne. Anna had a calm, thoughtful beauty, with intelligent eyes and a warm smile. There was no awkwardness between them. They talked for hours, not about Mariah's betrayal, but about the power of narrative, about writing as therapy, about how people find strength after hitting rock bottom. Derek felt an immediate connection, an understanding he hadn't experienced in a very long time. It wasn't a spark of romance, but the gentle resonance of two kindred spirits. In January, Derek decided to take a solo trip. He drove to Glacier National Park in Montana. In the dead of winter, the park was nearly deserted, covered in a blanket of pristine white snow and profound silence. He hiked alone, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. He stood before a frozen Lake McDonald, staring at the majestic snow-capped peaks rising against a brilliant blue sky. The sheer scale and permanence of nature made his own problems feel small and temporary. The mountains didn't judge. They didn't care about human heartbreak or vengeance. They just were. And in their presence, Derek found a deep sense of peace. While he was there, Dennis Rayburn called. Mariah had filed a defamation suit against him. "Don't worry," Dennis said, his voice casual. "I immediately filed a countersuit for fraud and intentional infliction of emotional distress with the full evidence package and signed affidavits attached. Her lawyer called back within an hour. They want to settle." Derek just smiled. That war had ended long ago in his mind. "Do whatever you think is best, Dennis." He hung up and took a deep breath of the crisp, cold mountain air. He had walked through fire and had not been consumed. He had survived. He looked up at the towering peaks, feeling a new sense of clarity and purpose. He was ready to start again, not by erasing the past, but by learning from it. He whispered to himself, the words dissolving into the cold void. "I once loved like a fool. Now I live like a man who knows better.